Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X Bottom. I'm one of your hosts, Alejandro. With me is Mike Myers himself.
Paul, hey everybody, how is it going?
Halloween season soon, Paul. So,
It is.
can you believe? We're already halfway
Uh,
through October. I don't know where this month went.
if I'm Mike Myers, I wonder who you are.
I am, based on how white I am, I'm probably the Saw clown, Jigsaw.
Don't like that. All right. Oh man, there's a lot going on, isn't there, Alejandro?
It is. The good thing is that now in the escapism route, like some movies are coming out, lots of games are coming out, so we can finally be a little bit distracted instead of having to feel like we have to lay our tales of the weather outside. Not this time. Right now, everything has just been dry. But yeah, how's life, Paul?
It finally got cold.
Nice.
So it's only gonna last until I think Friday, and then it gets a little hot again. But at least for yesterday and today, it's been like 58, feeling great. So
Yeah,
that's been great.
I know that. Well, back in Tulsa, because I had a lot of friends there, they're getting a freezing advisory already, and I'm like, what the heck?
Lord.
Why? And then I went in and checked the weathers for highs of 59 and lows of 32. I'm like, you guys are nuts if you're giving weather advisory for that. That seems excessive. Unless it was snowing, maybe I would believe it. But right now, it's not like it's gonna be snowing there in October. But even though I know that up north, people are already getting snow in October, which is weird. But it's just dreamy. I wish I could have that kind of cool. Yeah, I wish I could be in a place that could be cozy, that I could be wearing a jacket. I'm still wearing shorts. So
Yep.
so but enough of that, Paul, because this is the X Bottom Podcast, our gaming podcast that posts every Thursdays from 2 p.m. onwards, God willing, and available in the YouTube channel Escape Gaming, as well as most audio services around the world, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. You can find links in the RSS feed at anchor.fm/escape-gaming. If you enjoy our show, give us a like and subscribe. So it's a good thing that we always put the 2 p.m. onwards, because we're recording on a Thursday right now, because some things we're gonna break. In fact, there is a live stream that should be happening in 53 minutes from when we started the recording in regards to Resident Evil. So by the time we may or may not be done with that, I might look at it and may amend the show real quick.
I'm curious to see what they're going to talk about.
Yeah, especially if they're doing a freaking showcase. But before we're jumping into the news, let's talk about the couple games that we've been playing, Paul. So, which ironically, recent times, both of us are playing it together. So where do you stop at Assassin's Creed Valhalla?
I actually, so I amend my statement to you on our group chat. I did not start the Nottinghamshire storyline. I did just begin it though. So
Okay.
I did Hemming's quest line, going up the tower, that whole thing. I accidentally threw the boss off of the tower to kill him, so I had to go down to pick up his spear and then climb the tower again to trigger the cutscene. So that sucked. But because man, I was so happy that it let me throw him off and then had to go back up all the way.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about continuing that, but I kind of took a break both because of the other game that we've been playing. But last thoughts on Valhalla, just continuing to plug away at it, getting more cool cloaks and armors that I can wear. It used to confuse the crap out of me that you only had so many variations of outfits, but realizing that the visuals change with each time you upgrade.
Yeah, you didn't know that?
I didn't, because the changes from the gray to the bronze were so minimal that I did not notice the differences until revisiting, and then I was like, oh, okay, so that actually changes it.
When you transform it to blue and then gold, it changes. It keeps adding extra.
Right, I just didn't have any resources back in the early stages of the game to actually bring anything to the silver, that I was not noticing it. But then when I put something on silver, I was like, oh shoot, this looks awesome now. Then I started enjoying myself so much more, and then getting more unique armor and weapons that you can get from Retta's shop. That is also the cosmetics that you can buy with real money. You can unlock little bit of them here
with a
and
little
there.
bit of a grind if you do contracts every day from him,
Right.
because they always keep rotating.
And they only take, like, if you're already playing Valhalla for the fun of it, you just do that each day you happen to be playing. It only takes me like an extra 10 minutes or so to do, and then I have some extra opals lying around for next week whenever things reset. Basically the same thing I do with Destiny and the Bright Dust.
And that's the thing, like, Valhalla is it's a live service game that hides itself as a single player game.
Yeah.
And I think it does a really good job at hooking you in if you let it hook you in. So,
it definitely does, as long as you have other things going on for it. I think once I'm done with the main story, I am going to drop the whole game like a bad habit. But while I'm still working on all of
you're
that,
so close to ending it now, I tell you, because
I'm very close.
Somehow, even though you had a 2-year lead ahead of me, I beat Valhalla. I beat it yesterday. So I was so close to beating it because Plague Tale came out, and I was like, I started playing Plague Tale, but then my lizard brain was like, hey, you're so close to beating Valhalla, you might as well just get it done now so you can have the peace of mind. So I decided, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna power through Valhalla finally, gonna do the final conquests, and then finally reach the godforsaken ending that I got a whiff of. I got a whiff of it like a month ago, like very late at night, by a random tweet. That's why I went down this rabbit hole of wanting to finish it, to get to witness it. And I tell you, the ending of Valhalla is as crazy as I had gotten the whiff of it, and it's also shockingly anticlimactic. It's so good and bad at the same time.
I remember saying that Odyssey's ending was really anticlimactic, but that was also because it had like 3 separate endings that you could get based on the plot line you did. So is this sort of like that situation, or just across the board?
So the more I started reading around, it's like this game kind of depends on you having finished so many different arcs altogether, so you can kind of like really understand why the things that happen in the main thing are like a bigger deal. So, for example, like what I told you is that if you haven't finished the Asgard and Jotunheim arcs, those are like more pivotal to understanding why the boss fight you fight at the very end happens, and why the things that he's telling you as he fights you make sense, and in a way, it also, how can I say this? It makes sense why the next Assassin's Creed that's coming up, it's with the character that you're gonna be playing. Because he's like a big thing for the ending of this one, like the big reveal and all of that, and like the status of the mod. Like, do you have any idea of what the modern day status quo is? Like, anything at all?
I think the last time what's even the name of the main character again?
Layla. Yeah.
So I think I remember, because I get Odyssey and Valhalla's like modern time mixed up a lot. I think there's like some kind of cataclysm going on.
Yeah, the cataclysm thing is in Valhalla. That wasn't even a whiff in Odyssey.
Okay, and then you're being attacked. No, you were attacked in a base, but I think that was in Odyssey. You found a house in Valhalla, and you found Eivor's remains. And that's about all I can remember.
Yeah, because that's the thing. There's only 2 big things outside the Animus. Like the very beginning, when you see Layla, and you start learning that there's like this new cataclysm that's happening, so it's like harkening back to the Assassin's Creed 3 modern day stuff. It's like almost a mirror to it. And then picking up that thread after they had dropped it, and then you don't get outside the Animus until you're done conquering England with Eivor. The other times that you get to interact with like the modern stuff is if you do the Animus anomalies, which there's like 10 of those spread through.
I've done one of them recently, but it really doesn't do anything outside of, oh, now you're Layla and you're doing exactly the same things.
No, actually it does. That's part of the endings.
Oh, right, because if you do it, you get that little cutscene.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that it's all stuff that I've done before. Assassin's Creed did it before, so like part of me is just really not interested in it, but I know you said that it's really interesting.
No, that's the thing, like when you combine the ending of the main game, that by itself is like okay, but then like you mix it with the ending of the Asgard and Jotunheim arc, and then you see the ending of this Animus Anomalies, and comparing contrast while you're shown in both and seeing that they're basically the same. Only one is an illusion and the other one is the actual real thing that fits with the lore of Assassin's Creed and the precursors and all that. That's when everything is like, this is an interesting choice that they've made, especially now moving forward, because I'll tell you, the Layla story ends here. You won't be playing with her again. That's all I'll say. Like, you're playing now with another character that I won't spoil you, and it makes sense why Mirage is going the way that it's gonna go, because I wonder if they're gonna. Yeah, and you're so close that you might as well just like push through.
I will eventually now. But now,
yeah, right now
that's just it. It's like now we're at the cusp of everything else I want to play. So
exactly, especially with this.
We'll see.
Yeah, I will say this: like, it spent 115 hours with Assassin's Creed Valhalla. That was on my final playtime.
Yeah.
Only one of those hours I was bored with. I don't know what that's. I don't know what that's.
Impressive, yes. Honestly.
Yeah, I don't know what it's. So, and this is where I'm like, really struggling in my mind, because I think I really love this. But I don't think I can recommend it to everyone. Like, I really can't, because I'm like, this game vibed with me with very, very specific ways that I just kind of like fell head over heels over it. But I don't know if many people are gonna, like, for 100 plus hours, want to keep doing the same loop that I found very comfortable. And this is, to me, like, almost prime time example for whenever we talk about like pricing games and all of that. Why length to me it's never so like the thing that I base everything on, because I don't know that everyone you can get this game for $20 and you're gonna get hundreds of hours out of this. Are you gonna enjoy all of that? That's always gonna be my big like sticking point where when I think about like how much you can extract out of a game, because sometimes I see the argument that I'd rather play a game that doesn't overstay its welcome. This one for some reason didn't overstay its welcome for the month that I played it. But I was also playing it very leisurely. I wasn't playing it with the pressure of, I need to finish it to get other stuff. It just so happened that the ending of this game coincided with this other game coming out literally the same day. So I was like, I might as well just finish it now, because I might as. I don't want to like cut myself off, but
starting to send a trend between you manage to finish a game right as the next one comes out, and I get to the very end of it before I can finish, and then the next game comes out.
Yeah.
And then it leads to you feeling great about finishing all these games, and it leads to me feeling terrible because I just can't quite finish it in time.
I just don't understand how you play. I really don't understand how you play that. I was able to double the hour time that you had at a certain point, and I still managed to finish it.
That's how it is. Living this kind of life where you can't really play much on weekends, and most of your day is spent doing all the
I think that's the
world.
key. Like, I had, especially during the weekends, I took huge chunks all the time.
The only time I got to play all day was when my wife was out of town, and then I got to play the whole day. But then I also felt terrible trying to play all day, so I had to like go out and go do other things, because now I've had that string of time broken, similarly to back when I was playing Red Dead Online, and then I missed a day, and then I was like, why am I doing this with my life?
I know.
So
it depends on
tricky.
priorities. Yeah, it's definitely priorities. But yeah, I'm just so glad that I finally finished it. The thing is that I have so much left that I can come back to, because I did everything that's germane to the main game. Like, I completed all the assassinations. I actually liked how they structured the assassinations here compared to in Odyssey. It feels like if you're intentional, you can you can weave the assassinations in and out, because there are specific conquering chapters that are all about assassinating the targets.
Yeah.
So you can kind of like know that you can kind of put it in your mind. This is now where I'm gonna focus on, and I feel the way that you find a lot of the targets in Valhalla was much easier and much more compelling than they were in Odyssey. Odyssey felt even more vaguer, and there were way more. You know, it was like a massive list. This one, it's still a lot of people, but it feels like more manageable. And I like that every time that you kill someone, you had like the little cutscene, like old school Assassin's Creed, where you're like speaking with them in like the afterlife, which in this case is like Niflheim, and then sometimes you get Odin with you, and you have kind of like that conversation. It's good. It's cool to see the trope mix in with the mythology that they were doing with this one. So it made that more compelling, and in Odyssey, it was just straight up junk food of like, okay, found this target, confirm, move on. Like you could barely felt like you were taking chunks out of the Order, and that one was the Cult of Cosmos. Then this one's the Order of the Ancients, and who the Old Father is was a nice surprise, I'll say, and kind of like the justification for why you killed all these targets. You'll see it when you get there. Right. Or I can spoil it for you. But now I have the Siege of Paris, I have Wrath of the Druids, I have Dawn of Ragnarok. They're waiting there. I can come back to this game afterwards. But now we're in the not quite review season for us because we don't review stuff. We're just like season, it's just a busy season. So we start with the big one. I Plague Tale Requiem that I only played like 2 hours of.
I played a lot more of it lately.
Yes.
And it's great. It has a good few bugs that kind of jacked with my time with it at times. The checkpoints are actually kind of weird.
Really?
For the most part, they're fine. But there were some points where I was at the very, very end of something and I died, and then it sent me all the way back to the like puzzle process of getting through an area. That only happened once, where I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And then all of the rest have been like decently fine. Sometimes it's like I get caught when I shouldn't have, just like little things, but it's much more manageable to go guns blazing essentially. Because they give you an option to take out just about any enemy, as opposed to the first game where it was like, all right, you can kind of do it with some, but even like the rocks I think were limited. Now you have unlimited rocks, so anybody that doesn't have a helmet you can take out in one shot. Even the armored enemies, they give you ways that are much easier to do, like the crossbow, like we mentioned. So
you started using the crossbow already?
Yes. So okay. I've gotten a good chunk of the way in. I think I'm at like chapter 7 or 8 now. I don't know how many there are supposed to be, but
I haven't
feel
checked.
like I'm making good headway in the game, and I'm terrified for the lives of these wonderful children that I love so much, because there's situations where both of them.
I heard there's a Last of Us. I heard there's Last of Us Part 2 like level of grimness. Where they take them.
At least like Amicia and Hugo have been safe. However, like I'll feel the forebodingness of like by the end of this, both or something might happen permanently to either of them, but every NPC besides them I feel like is on a ticking clock. Especially for one of them in particular that I won't spoil, but none that you've met yet, so okay. I'll at least tell you that.
So I assume that where you are in the game you start to see more of the swarm of rats already.
Yes. So I've seen a lot of like Hugo's powers as well involving them. Like the rats are like constant, and it shows just how crappy this world is, because you will feel like you just got out of a situation, and then you'll feel the tremors again, and either they're like, oh no, not again, damn it, and then just crap goes down. I'll
say this, like I stopped when you're entering the Colosseum, where you see that the play has like showed up there. Right. How much sooner before I start seeing more gameplay like additions? Because from what I played so far, it's just been more of the first game, with not being able to be killed with.
Thank God you die in like 2 attacks.
It's 2 now,
essentially.
So.
Which is so much more forgiving, honestly, because there's little moments where you're like, okay, I was within 5 feet and I instantly died. Come on.
Yeah, and now that they give you the addition that with your slingshot you can like slam someone like with like a melee,
stun them essentially. So as long as there's like one, you can kind of just cheese the crap out of them if you really wanted to. But anyway, to answer your actual question, the Colosseum is where I think the game really starts to get going.
Okay.
It felt like.
Before that, it just felt like more of the first game, and I would know because I just recently played it. So.
Right. That was more like the Jackson segment, if we want to keep the Last of Us style things going. That's like, okay, the plot hasn't really kicked in yet. We just have to remind you how effed up this world is.
Yeah, with the bees, the beekeepers.
How in danger these children are. Even though, like, they kind of do that drawn-out thing with the town, and you're like, oh, look at how great everything is. We're so happy. We're safe now. now, and you're just like, oh no, I know this is just gonna be so bad for everyone. And sure enough, it does it. So, and it just kind of does that over and over again in different flavors. So as long as that's your thing, you're in for a treat. If it's not, I gotta say it might get old after a while.
Yeah, I can't wait after we record, like, because I have now the option to just like dive straight into this one, or do the Modern Warfare 2 campaign that unlocked the day early. So
yes. So have you gotten any further in that?
The Modern Warfare campaign.
I mean, how far did you get? I mean,
no, I haven't touched the Modern Warfare.
Okay,
my
so
brother, my brother was playing it.
Okay.
That's why I was telling you behind the scenes that it unlocked the day early, and I was like, wait, it unlocked today, and he told me he was playing the second mission when I saw him, so I kind of have an idea of how it looks already. It definitely looks like Modern Warfare, so that's something
for that.
Yeah, because I know it's just gonna be such a brief time. Plague Tale Requiem is like 15-18 hours, they said, and they promised that there was not gonna be any filler. And from what I played,
there hasn't felt like it. I did want to mention while I was thinking about it, sorry to cut you off, that even though the game looked huge in trailers, it still feels like the first game that feels very methodical, very linear, close together. Like, I really liked about that. It's just that on first impression, I was like, yeah, this is like because I can say this, even though I experienced the PS5 version of Innocence that was at 4K and 60. It ran very smooth. Playing this took a little bit of an adjustment because this is our first AAA game in this generation that capped at 30 frames. There's another one that's coming out tomorrow that's not reviewing so hot that was also capped at 30. And I will say that I quickly adjusted my eyes to like, this is not at 60. So I was like, this is how I used to play games before. It sucks that it's not at 60 frames, but I did appreciate seeing extra detail to the characters' faces and animations, because I tell you, even with like the extra resolution in the other one, some of the faces in Innocence looked rough at times. So sometimes the lip syncing is really
it's still off, but it used to be way worse in Innocence.
At least this one, everybody looks great and everything feels great. It's only in like the moment to moment, kind of like what we talked about with Last of Us Part 1 from one remake and the original, where like some of the animations don't really tie into each other very well. So I saved a couple of clips of characters just kind of like sliding along the ground because the animation didn't really trigger and stuff like that. But for the most part, you will have like a suspension of disbelief to imagine this game is a AAA for sure. And it's been fun, especially as a change of pace from everything else.
Yeah, and you played years ago the original, so it's like you're slipping
like just 1 or 2 years
exactly, but I mean it was just a few months ago, so you haven't had this like you're returning to this in a very comfortable way. Like, I remember this, and you didn't play the PS5 version, so you don't know better of like the enhancements that were given for that one. So because you told me you played it on PS4.
Right.
So
I played it on PS5, but it was the PS4 version. Because there was they then later on gave you the PS5 upgrade. But that was the difference with that.
So you did it. So you didn't play. I want to keep playing more. Again, like it just happened that I just wanted to finally be done with the main game of Valhalla, just to put some closure there, so I can then just focus on this one without having, because if there's something that I've loved in this year and you notice it, I laser focus on a game no matter what. I've been more disciplined in trying to just stick with one game, and that's why I found more enjoyment out of playing it that way. So that's why I was like, even though Plague Tale's here, I just want to get done with Valhalla, so then I can just laser focus on Plague Tale. Right now, again, it's like, it's this debate in my head of the Modern Warfare campaign unlocked early, this is already here, Gotham Knights unlocks later tonight. Even though the reviews for that one has been scathing, I still want to try it, because if there's something that I learned with Saints Row, is that even though some games may be reviewed a certain way, that doesn't mean that's how we're going to feel. So I definitely want to try that, because that's still something that I'm very interested in, especially on the heel of me watching Black Adam yesterday, which it was fine. I enjoyed it fine.
I saw your post about it on Facebook.
Yeah, it was just a fun action movie, and
I feel like that's all it really needs to be too.
Exactly. It's a Dwayne Johnson movie. That's what's so fun. It's like a Dwayne Johnson DC movie, so you know what you're getting. If you're a Christian that is sensitive about occult stuff, buyer beware on the villain there, because I was actually taken aback because I wasn't expecting them to take that road with the villain. So
at least it's the Doom approach to Satanism, where it's like, that's clearly the evil thing, and we're going to beat the crap out of it.
That's why I was having a debate with one of my friends where I was talking to him about it, because I showed him he was like, "Why do you think it's worse, this or what happened in Doctor Strange 2?" Because Doctor Strange 2, in the Multiverse of Madness, the good guy has to resort to using very occult bad stuff to do good, and that's like it's a. And this one is just like a very demonic guy with a upside down pentagram in his chest. That's the ultimate villain. That's the champion of the demons, whose name is like the literal names of demons. Like the initials of his name are literally references to literal demons.
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
I posted it in the in our chat.
You posted it, and I didn't connect that that's what you were trying to say. I thought you were just listing random demon names. I was like, okay, that's weird.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's like the initials, because the villain's name Sabbac, Sabbac, and those the initials are from Satan, Asmodeus, Beelzebub, Baal, and all that. So just be aware. Like, if you're one that just doesn't want to see anything that even remotely touches that side of things, beware with Black Adam. But
though, if you saw Shazam and watched the personifications of the seven
sins, yes,
rip people apart,
you're
probably fine. And Black Adam is very associated with Shazam on.
Oh yeah, well, he literally screams Shazam. That's how he becomes like the champion. It's still. Oh, sure, I'll still say this: Pierce Brosnan stole that movie, like I knew he would, as Dr. Fate. And a very funny Atom Smasher. That's very Deadpool-y. So, but enough of movies with that. I'm in the mood for DC right now, so that's why I was like, even if this is bad, I want to see it for myself.
Poor timing for us to switch our channel name to Escape Gaming,
right?
Isn't it?
But that's the thing. When last time we talked about movies, maybe when the Suicide Squad came out, but even then, whatever. So. Enough of that, Paul. There's a few, because we didn't do news last week because I was scraping the bottom of the barrel to try to find things of interest. Now there were a few, so
press X. Oh wait, for some news.
All right, Paul. As we're recording this right now, there's a Resident Evil showcase that will start like in 30 minutes. So. At this point in the show, if I learn that important things are shown there, I might cut it here.
Didn't you say that it was 3 your time, 4 my time?
Yeah, apparently it's 4 my time, your 5. Yeah, they pushed it.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah, they pushed it forward because I have it. I have it in a window here. I'm kind of like side eyeing it just to make sure that maybe I catch something or not. But in case there's like any big announcements right now, here's where I will cut in and just talk about it. Because I don't know if I can get you in. So let's cut in maybe here right now. And as promised, I am cutting in here way later after me and Paul recorded this episode to talk about some of the things that they showcased at the Resident Evil showcase that was happening right as we were recording. So in the Resident Evil showcase, they gave us a new look at Shadows of Rose, the expansion that's coming to Resident Evil Village on October 28th. And then they explained there that Rose wants to remove her powers and therefore has to return to the village. That's what they say there. So if you haven't played Resident Evil Village and you didn't know about what happens in the game, sorry. But that was shown there. They showed some new adjustments they did to Resident Evil Mercenaries, the Mercenaries mode from that game. And you look at the third-person mode they're adding to the main Village game, and also the perspective that's going to be in its entirety for the DLC. And they're also doing a demo that you can download right now to try out the third-person mode before it launches on October 28th. Then they gave us a new look at the multiplayer RE-verse, and they mentioned things like they're doing crossplay and doing an early access that starts on... When does it start? Let me see. Oh yeah, the early access for RE-verse starts on October 23rd, so a few days from now. And it's going to end on October 25th and the 26th. And they also announced that Resident Evil Village is coming to Mac, which I found funny. They reiterated the Village cloud version of the Switch that's also coming on October 28th with the DLC for that on December 2nd. And then they gave us a new look at the Resident Evil 4 remake, which actually it's available there on on their YouTube channel, and then you can see that it actually looks like a more faithful remake than the reports were saying it was going to be, more of a reimagining. It's very actiony, but even also creepier. So like you will still fight the Ganados, you'll still be able to like parry and fight in close combat like it was back in the original version of Resident Evil 4. They're bringing back the classic item menu, so like the big case where you can like manage, instead of how it is in recent modern Resident Evils that you have like a little backpack. They're bringing like the big case. The merchant is back, the what you buying. And they also announced that game's gonna come with a deluxe edition and a collector's edition. And since they also announced a PS4 version back in was it TGS? If you're still on PS4 with the eventuality of upgrading to PS5, you're gonna get the PS5 version for free if you buy it on PS4. So that was all they showcased at the Resident Evil showcase. So now we're cutting back into the normal version of the news. And now we're back. I don't know if I'm cutting in based on whatever there's there, but let's start with our official number one, Paul, which was a shit ton of Silent Hill announcements. So via VGC, there's like 3 sections to this. So the first one is the first part for this first story. Bloober's Silent Hill 2 remake is officially coming to PS5 and PC. Following months of anticipation, Konami has officially confirmed a Silent Hill 2 remake. The game was revealed during a Silent Hill transmission livestream on Wednesday and is being developed by Bloober Team, the Polish studio behind The Medium, Layers of Fear, and Blair Witch. The game will be released for PlayStation 5 as a console exclusive, as well as PC, Konami said. And original creators such as art director Masahiro Ito and composer Akira Yamaoka are said to be closely involved. In a post on a PlayStation blog, Konami revealed further details such as the game will be powered by Unreal Engine 5 and use its Lumen and Nanite technologies. Bloober is also rebuilding the combat and certain set pieces, Konami said, among other things, such as rebuild cutscenes using motion capture sessions. Mateusz Leonard, the creative director behind Bloober's The Medium and Blair Witch, will lead the Silent Hill 2 project. So the other part for this is also Silent Hill Townfall announced, published by Annapurna Interactive. Revealed during the Silent Hill transmission, Silent Hill Townfall is in development at Scottish studio No Code and will be published by Annapurna Interactive. No Code has previously developed stories untold and observation. There were previous games. While no gameplay was shown, some images were quickly flashing during the presentation, which may allude to the game being a first-person project. And then the other big announcement for this was Silent Hill F is a new game from the studio behind Resident Evil Resistance. The game was revealed also on Wednesday during the publisher Silent Hill transmission livestream. It's in development at Taiwan-based Neobars Entertainment, the studio behind Resident Evil Resistance, the asymmetrical multiplayer survival game released in 2020, and the upcoming online game Resident Evil Rebirths. Prior to Resident Evil Resistance, Neobars has also released games from other classic IPs, including Devil May Cry HD Collection, Onimusha Warlords Remaster, and the Resident Evil Origins collection for Switch. More recently, it contributed to Capcom's Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes, as well as Marvel's Avengers. So, Paul, a year-ish ago, VGC was the ones that they had sources telling them that Konami was planning a big resurgence for Silent Hill, that they had multiple games in development. In fact, that was reported around the same time that the bullshit around Abandon was happening, and everyone thought that was a Silent Hill game. So, this is finally done. Like, it's like Konami finally spoke. Games are finally revealed. What do you think?
So I want to preface it all by saying I don't really like Silent Hill.
No, you've never played them. Me neither.
Yeah, never played any of them. The only one I kind of played was PT, obviously, and I think that's what got a lot of people into the series.
And that's the thing. Like, Silent Hill was dead for a reason. The last few games that they released were not good. And
that's what I was hearing.
And then, like, when PT was shocked, it was like a shocking reveal because it was like announced at a Gamescom at 2014 at a Sony conference. It was like this thing called PT by a random studio that no one had heard of. Everyone started, and they were like, yeah, demo available now. And then people start playing the demo, they figure out the demo, and the next day someone unlocked the ending of the demo that revealed the Silent Hills project by Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro, starring Norman Reedus. That's when people lost their minds because it was such a cool way to reveal something, especially like a revival of a series that had been dormant. Then the whole thing with Konami and Kojima happened. That thing went the way of the Wasu. Then Death Stranding happened out of that. And then people were like, man, would it be cool to get Silent Hill back? That's always been the thing. But even with this announcements, I'm like, I tell you, the internet was not kind at the announcement that it was Bloober Team in charge of the Resident Evil 2 remake, even though when you looked at images of it, it looks good because it's using Unreal Engine 5. It's like, it looks like something modern. And of course they would go the remake route instead of starting with like a new entry, because that's how you gauge the interest, to see if like there's actual appetite for, if the appetite for that series is real, if it's not just like augmented by the PT shenanigans before it. But then when you know that this is the same team that gave you Layers of Fear, the Blair Witch Project, the Medium, games that are 60, 70s in Metacritic, you know, it's like there's reason to be a little bit skeptical. But I think I mentioned it when we last heard that they were going to be doing the showcase maybe a few weeks ago, and then you mentioned the same thing, that you're not a big on Silent Hill. To me, this is just cool to see a confirmation of BGC's previous reporting, because
which means that some of the other things might be real.
Castlevania and Metal Gear are next, two that I actually do prefer. I like some Castlevania. I like to see what a modern Castlevania will look like. Konami must be kicking themselves to miss out on the synergy of not having a Castlevania something after the actual amazing Netflix show came to an end. And
I mean, that's honestly, the show is what caused me to be interested in the series as well. And once again, it like brought back a lot of people interested in it, and they kind of cashed in with the collections, but there, like, the fact that there was not a real Castlevania game to rely on definitely hurt them. So hopefully Silent Hill, like, cross media situations is how it
because they also announced a sequel to the old movie. They announced it in this thing. So it's so funny that Silent Hill was so dormant, and out of a sudden they're coming out of the gate with, here's all this stuff. It's like, it's
clearly the way to go nowadays, for sure.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, I feel that's a little. How can I say this? It seems a little premature to see that people want that much Silent Hill. I feel that you could have started with one, at least just announcing one, see where to go, and then go all in big, because it's like putting the cart before the horse in a way.
Yeah. So I mean, this is Konami after all. The ones, that kind of get a whiff of people's interest and then really go in a direction nobody really wanted. So it's
like the NFTs.
Yeah. So I could see how they were like, oh, you like Silent Hill, hearing from like 3 or 4 years ago. Well, let's make everything and then just throw it all at you all at once. So I do think it's a little bit much. I'm sure that people that are really into it are going crazy right now. Mm-hmm. I just hope that it's spaced out enough for them to course correct things that didn't really work between projects.
Yes, and the fact is that it was confirmed, like BGC had mentioned, that it was all separate teams doing that. I think that's probably a very exciting way to look at it from like the outside, because it's like, it's not the same team working on all these games, so everyone can add their different flavor. The third one that they announced, the F one, it's interesting because it's like a old-timey 1960s Japan horror thing. So that's definitely a different vibe from what I've seen from previous Silent Hill. So I definitely want to see more of that, especially because that one is being like scripted by a mystery murder popular novelist from Japan. So we'll see about it. I'm glad that that's out, because then it means, yes, I believe Metal Gear's coming back soon. I believe Castlevania is coming back soon, and that's the thing that I cared about. It only takes one domino to fall before we get the other dominoes, so glad it's finally happened. In a little bit of sadder news, but it's like, it's just par for the course for this company these days. Official story number 2. Splinter Cell Remake's director has left Ubisoft, by Jordan Midler from BGC. David Grivell, the director of the upcoming Splinter Cell remake, has left Ubisoft after 11 years, he has announced. In a post on LinkedIn, he said that it was time for him to go on a new adventure. Grivell worked on Ghost Recon Future Soldier at Ubisoft Paris before moving to Ubisoft Toronto to work on Splinter Cell Blacklist, Assassin's Creed Unity, Far Cry 4, 5, and 6, and most recently the upcoming Splinter Cell remake. Ubisoft officially confirmed last December that it was working on a remake of Splinter Cell, this stealth action game which was released in 2002 as an Xbox exclusive and then came to PS2 and GameCube a year after. It said the game was being rebuilt with the Snowdrop engine, which also powers The Division, and is being used to build Avatar Frontiers of Pandora and Ubisoft's upcoming Star Wars game, to deliver new generation visuals and gameplay and the dynamic lighting and shadows the series is known for. It was discovered earlier this year that Ubisoft Toronto is currently looking to recruit a scriptwriter to update the original game's story, quote-unquote, for a modern-day audience. So, waving the red flag here. Waving the red flag, because...
Not a good look.
No, it's like, why would he leave? Like, that's kind of like my big thing is like, why leave when you're in charge of this? Like, this was the project, the one that last year, even when it was announced, it felt like a defeatist announcement, because we had gone through that whole year of Ubisoft just doing the worst after the worst after the worst after the worst after the worst, that then culminated in the NFT garbage, which, by the way, do you know that they've only sold 40 NFTs total? And
music to my ears.
Yeah, music to my ears, like that. There was this Bloomberg article that came out yesterday that SkillUp retweeted of like, great job gamers, of saying that blockchain and NFTs has been the one thing that gamers have been completely, fully rejectful of, and that makes me so excited, because that didn't happen with microtransactions. That's what those stayed in, but those literally people truly rejected him.
This guy lasted for so long, from all the way back in a Future Soldier
2012. That's like 2000s. If he worked in the original version of Future Soldier, that was like 2008, 2010.
And I mean, even working on Blacklist, Unity, and all of the modern Far Cries, like, this guy stuck around for the worst of the worst, only to finally have the last straw at the Splinter Cell remake. So it's either something about the specific project, or he just wised up and said, hey, I can do this better elsewhere. So I hope best to him. And it definitely doesn't look good for the Splinter Cell remake. I mean, are they even going to move forward with it? Like, that's gotta have pushed it.
They canceled the VR Splinter Cell game that they had announced way back. That was when Ubisoft canceled the Ghost Recon Frontlines, the battle royale that was so downvoted to death.
I never even watched the trailer for it. That's how bad it ended up being.
Yeah. Hey, here's the thing: where the hell is X Defiant? The shooter that they look like Call of Duty, like that thing, like, it apparently still exists. So the thing is that this remake feels like it's in the same spot as the Prince of Persia: Sands of Time remake that was supposed to be out in January 2021, and then got indefinitely delayed and changed. Whatchamacallit? They changed developers.
Man.
Yeah. They because it was being doing at Ubisoft Prune, like a Ubisoft studio in India. Then apparently the work there was so bad that they were like, no, we're bringing this remake in-house to Montreal, where Prince of Persia was originally developed for, even though the main director is no longer there. But those two projects are MIA. Nothing new was announced. Remember what I was talking about, the Ubisoft showcase that was so poor? Even though at least one of the games from that showcase, Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope, is like one of the best reviewed things of this week.
It's crushing it, that's for sure.
Yeah. Glad for the Switch owners that are going to be playing it. But it's like, then they had nothing. Then Skull and Bones got delayed out of it, so Ubisoft has nothing left for the rest of the year other than an update for Valhalla that was supposed to conclude that story. They're doing the final chapter for Eivor. To me, it's just so sad that only Assassin's Creed seems like it's the one project they have that seems like a well-oiled machine, quote unquote, that they got all these games going. They got even though Mirage had to be retooled for a full game. It makes me sad because Splinter Cell is the one I like. Splinter Cell has been the one I've been wanting for close to 10 years. And if you're losing your director, this has been pushed back all the way back. Real unfortunate, but I want them to surprise. I want Ubisoft to surprise, because I don't spend 115 hours in one of their games and not know that when they got the chops, they got them good. That's what makes it so sad, that everything else is just so badly managed at the studio currently. They're just close to getting absorbed by Tencent, and that would be ironic. Just imagine the Tom Clancy name being owned by the Chinese. He would be rolling in his grave. You remember he died.
Considering the kind of man that he was, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Especially how much he hated the commies, how much he hated all of the, like, let me
Man who never even served in the military.
So that just makes it funny, but let's see who they get as a director here. So a pair of stars. So I intentionally didn't want to talk about the Activision Blizzard deal anymore, Paul.
Me neither.
Because it feel like we were just talking in circles about a bunch of stuff, but interesting things happened that I think we need to talk about. Especially this one came out today, and the other one was revealed a few days ago. But story number 3: the UK regulator asked members of the public to share their views on the Activision Blizzard deal. The UK competition regulator has started inviting members of the public to share their views on Microsoft's proposed acquisition of Activision Blizzard. In a post on the official UK government website explaining the second phase of its investigation, the Competition and Markets Authority stated that everyone will now be able to give their opinion on whether the deal should go ahead. The CMA recently published its issue statements listing its theories of harm, the issues it believes are potential concerns. According to its process, once the issue statement is published, the next step is to open the issue up to the public. At this point, we invite everyone, including members of the public, to share their views with us, it states. According to the CMA, the issues of harm it's investigating include the impact of the merger on other console gaming platforms, including Activision games being made Xbox exclusives, Activision games being made timed Xbox exclusives, Microsoft taking Activision games Microsoft making Activision games lower quality on other systems, such as missing features, Microsoft making Activision games more expensive on other systems, the impact of the merger on multi-game subscriptions that rival Game Pass, and the impact of the merger on the future of cloud gaming. The public can submit their views and evidence regarding the issue now, though the CMA says it may not be able to acknowledge and respond to every submission due to the anticipated volume of submissions.
Before we get into the obvious parts of it, I do want to ask your personal opinion. Should Microsoft own Activision?
Twofold. I feel like a franchise like Call of Duty is so big that it should be like open for everyone.
Okay.
And it being like owned by only one company, considering how big, especially the one that initially says that they're gonna play ball and then have shown previously, like they did with Bethesda, that they ended up making it exclusive. They shouldn't end that, but part of me also wants Xbox to own Activision, because of what I know it's hidden in the vault there that has been like sealed. I mentioned it when the whole deal started back in January, that one of the positives that I could see from that deal is that seeing all franchises as a possibility to come back, because they want to feed Game Pass. And the only way that you can feed Game Pass is if you put a shit ton of games, and they have a shit ton of franchises that are just sitting there, because Activision was just like, we need Call of Duty all the time, Call of Duty all the time, Call of Duty all the time, Call of Duty all the time. So I'm like very 50-50 on it. To me, and part of me also wants Xbox to get this, because us as PlayStation gamers would see the embarrassment, embarrassment that Sony has been in the way that they have behaved with this deal. That now we heard the rumors that apparently there was a showcase that they was planning, because very coincidentally this week we hear a PS5 exclusive Silent Hill 2, the PS5 exclusive Final Fantasy 16 releasing a very meaty story trailer with more gameplay, and that looked really cool,
really good.
And I'm like, are they seriously like gonna start like a fan base that has been starving all year for like to hear stuff, and that are getting very antsy about like them hearing their manufacturer console choice, not telling them, like getting them excited for what's coming up next. And the rumor was that no showcase because they want to hold their cards, because they don't want to give ammo that they have all this content that could help the Activision Blizzard deal pass through. And that to me, like seeing the way that we're seeing these reveals of PS5 exclusive content, all that, it's seeming like it's true. Like it's absolutely seeming like it's true. And part of me kind of wants Xbox to get that, just to kind of stick it to Sony, because the way Sony's behaving in a way that I kind of want them to lose. And that's what's
so you essentially want Microsoft to win this out by spite.
By spite, yeah, exactly, yeah, because of the way that they're treating us as their consumers.
I think you're certainly onto something in one side of it, because Sony has behaved in such a way that you almost don't want to reward them, since they were the ones to cause such a stink about this. And then secondly, on the other hand, it's like, obviously being somebody who plays mainly on Sony platforms, it would really suck for some of these to be made exclusives, especially things like the next Elder Scrolls, Starfield, whatever.
Yeah, and those are finally gone. So, and because they made it clear that Elder Scrolls and the Bethesda thing, other than the live service stuff, is like no longer coming multi-platform unless they change their mind.
Right. Well, that's where it kind of lines up. Is like, if it doesn't go through, will it stay exclusive? But that's a whole other discussion. Now let's go ahead and talk about the whole thing. Why we actually wanted to mention this is they opened up the floodgates for the internet to give them suggestions.
They literally, I have you remembered that scene from Game of Thrones when Robb Stark is like, called the banners, we're going to war? They literally, they literally called every fanboy possible because everyone can go talk here.
I feel like this is similar to that Ready Player One moment where like gamers rise up and like everybody shows up. Because
you're gonna have a lot of people from the Sony side are gonna come flooding the thing to talk about how bad this is. Then you're gonna get the people from the Xbox side to come in and say, no, we definitely want this. There's gonna be like a bunch of so many things that there's no way that they're gonna get into like a common consensus of this thing. And
there's no way. Like I think I said it was like government-ordered console wars was not something I expected out of this year. And it's basically what's going on, because you're going to have so many people voicing their very passionate and sometimes super unintelligent takes on things back and forth, these people. And that's just, there's so much. And spite is a powerful drug. So
imagine like the header of the headlines of the whoever sends in their inquiries to this thing, they'll be like, PS better, XYZ, or Xbox sucks, 420. Man, just imagine, like, these are the kind of people that they invited if they have opened the floor for this. And part of me just wants to see what the shit show will be, because it's just hilarious that it's actually this is actually part of the process when they should be the ones that on their own criteria, because they're literally the competition markets authority. You should have the authority to see, like, with the evidence presented to you, what's good or not. Obviously, that I had heard about. Apparently, the CMA has been like really worried about how this could help Microsoft monopolize in the streaming service, in the subscription service model, getting this content like way early in a way that could like stamp out competition. So it's
certainly a concern to view seriously, but just like I think you were about to say that.
No, it is. It's there's a part of me that is like, I understand where the concerns are coming. The thing is that it's so funny. Sony is crying about like what would happen if this becomes exclusive, and what's the strategy that Sony has been doing, especially as reinforced this week with exclusive with exclusives.
Like, hey, we're bringing back Silent Hill 2 exclusively to the PS5, but
at least for 12 months. Yeah,
it's messy. And can you imagine being one of like just the regular full-time employees in Microsoft, or like Activision more likely, like worrying because your livelihood is kind of dependent on this deal, and then the CMA goes, hey, public, you want to weigh in on this? And they're just like, oh no, I'm gonna get fired.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like it's to me, it's so funny. I just hope that it's just symbolic of the process, because I just don't believe at all that it's like it's worth having the public, because you're just gonna get the bias of the biases.
Yeah.
And I just want this to be over, Paul. I just want, because just especially now, it hits close to home now that us as PlayStation know that I have old systems. Like, I bought a Series S specifically because I don't want to miss out on Xbox stuff, and I also have my PC if something's not looking right there, if I want to see if it can look better on my PC, that I can try that. It's like I like being like trying everything, but obviously we have made
I lost you.
Oh shoot!
There you
I thought I had lost you.
I lost you for all of that.
Okay, but hopefully it didn't miss out on my record. But like I was saying there, this hits close to home now for me, that if it is true that us, we have been getting starved of information because Sony's trying to do everything possible to try to stonewall this deal for a third party game, and and their behavior, that to me like makes me just want this deal to just be over.
Yeah.
Because it has just been like I mentioned to you, it's like, imagine the way that you are the one that are delivering the content this year. You're actually releasing exclusives, even though like Microsoft, like someone made a really good point that even if you're in the Xbox side, if you're open-minded enough and trying the things that they're putting on Game Pass, that service is like has basically like carried the Xbox side this entire year with interesting additions. If you're willing to try them out,
especially for indies.
Yeah, especially for indies. Yeah, in the big AAA console exclusive stuff, no, you're SOL or in Xbox, but there's still content that they have put out there. I mean, Plague Tale was delivered there this week, so sure. It's like the game in its entirety, day one. So it's like, but Sony, at least from like their first party, like the studios that they own, they're delivering content. They have one of the most anticipated games coming out in God of War Ragnarok in a few weeks. That finally went gold. We talked about it last week, so it's locked and loaded. Everyone was like, yeah, that's like the big one for this holiday. The way that they being acted like losers, like absolutely losers, with the way they've been behaving with this deal, is like, I don't understand that this Jim Ryan is destroying the PlayStation brand. I tell you, it's like it's making it a laughing stock. It's making it very hard for us to root for them. It's like all the goodwill that they had gathered up from the PS4 generation after they had recovered so much when they lost it in the PS3. It's like we're back at that end, and it's just embarrassing. It's just embarrassing. I just want this deal to be done. And the things that, remember I mentioned you there was this op-ed by Windows Central Gaming that I mentioned you about what would happen if the CMA somehow using the same verbiage that Sony is using for what the concerns are for this deal, stonewalls and blocks this deal.
Right.
What would Microsoft do with that $69 billion that they were ready to spend?
Yeah.
Now they have all that cash in hand. What are they gonna do? They're gonna like.
I would think they're not going to take no for an answer. Like, they're going to figure out a way to go through with the process in every way but name.
Mm-hmm.
And to...
I can imagine they're going to put so much money into litigation. They're going to take this to court. They'll definitely want to...
Plus the spite and motivation.
Oh, yes. Because that's the thing. Like, it's like a Sony... They have to remember, it's like that Microsoft has the money. They absolutely have the money.
Oh my goodness! It's not even really a competition, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even though they don't have, even though they are valued so high, it hasn't stopped them from like also not feeling the effects of the economy. We're gonna talk about that a little later. But it's just I just can't imagine just the power of spite if the deal is blocked. I kind of don't want that, because then I know that because they already if they were ready to spend that cash already, that cash has already been written off as like something that they're spending. And in this economy, you need to spend that money. You cannot just sit on that if you didn't already earmarked it for something. Imagine if then they play these Sony playbook, and then they start buying a bunch of timed exclusivity for everything because they have money to spend. And if someone wants a specific amount of money, they can just give it to them. Like, hey, you just imagine, hey, GTA 6, want to make your game timed exclusive? We'll pay you everything. We have all this money that we're gonna spend on Activision Blizzard, that we're gonna spend on games. Just imagine. I think it's imperative for Sony, like even though they might be positive it right now, it's imperative that this deal goes through, because I feel like Sony will not want Microsoft that seemingly like still wants to play ball because of this next story. Call of Duty may not appear in Game Pass for a number of years due to a prior Activision Sony deal. That's story number 4. Call of Duty games seemingly won't appear in Game Pass for a number of years due to an existing deal between Activision and Sony. Microsoft recently published its response to the Competition and Markets Authority (CMA) decision to review the $69 billion merger due to several concerns, including the impact of competition in the console game streaming and subscription spaces. In it, a footnote references a tweet from Phil Spencer alluding to prior agreements between Activision and Sony, which would prohibit Microsoft from adding Call of Duty to Game Pass even in the event of the acquisition being approved. The agreements between Activision Blizzard and Sony includes restrictions on the ability of Activision Blizzard to place Call of Duty titles on Game Pass for a number of years, the footnote reads. So, even though Microsoft was like, even though we're honoring the previous deal that you guys signed up the week before we announced the acquisition that carries all the way to like 2024, and then we heard about them extending it like for an extra 3 years. they're willing, like Microsoft's willing to play both to honor that contract enough that the big thing that they want for this deal, which is add Call of Duty games they want on Game Pass, won't be able to happen because the deal that Sony struck before is specifically inked. Hey, you guys are not gonna put this, as we have the marketing deal with you too, to put the games on Game Pass. Which, by the way, I believe this because the Resident Evil thing, someone got a hold of the marketing deal for Resident Evil Village and PlayStation, and they specifically marked this thing's not appearing on Game Pass. Like, it's absolutely not appearing on the Game Pass.
From I don't know how to say it. From like a concept of somebody who could just see how big Call of Duty is, I think putting it on Games Pass, I don't know if that would really work out for people the way they would think. Because on one hand, like, as we've talked about how Game Pass is such a good thing for certain individuals more than others, and Microsoft sometimes loses out on some of those deals outside of the memberships it creates. It would create a lot of memberships for Game Pass, but I wonder how long that would last.
No, that's the thing. Like, remember, they own everything they own stays there all the time. The only thing that switches out is Forza games.
Wait, they don't take... I thought they totally rotate content in Game Pass, because they've talked about things...
Not their exclusives.
Oh, okay, that's what I'm thinking.
They rotate the third-party content that they take from others.
Got it, okay.
But the thing is that with them owning Call of Duty as a first-party thing, because everything that they own, like all Bethesda games that they've added there, they are still there.
Do you think the money they would earn on Game Pass would match out for the amount of sales that they constantly get for Call of Duty?
And that's the thing, like what... this is one area where we can say that Microsoft speaks on both sides of their mouths, because they specifically mentioned in the during the Brazil regulatory thing, where they mentioned that it didn't make fiscal and financial sense to section off Call of Duty sales and just rely on Game Pass, because making these Call of Duty games takes so much money. They're very expensive games to make. There's a lot of upkeep with all the developers needed to keep these games going in. It's thousands of developers working on this, and the thing is that by the game being existing on Game Pass, it gives consumers the option of, like, the same game that I buy for $70 on PlayStation, I can play it for $10 over on Xbox. Yeah. That's the reason why Sony has been, like, putting in writing in the going into, like, the contracts that they make in marketing to specifically tell them you're not going to put this on Game Pass, because they know that as soon as they see that the same game, it's available in the other console, they can play it for $60 less than what they sell them on. Obviously, that's going to sway many people. And it's crazy.
That would be, like, the most tangible damage to Sony, I could think.
No, and that's the thing. Like, someone found out that Game Pass has in 2021 made $2.9 billion in revenue. And it may sound like a lot, but it's not. When you think about that, it's like $9 billion for what they reported was like 25 to 30 million subscribers. You would think that if you start making the math of how much a game costs to bring to the service and pay and all that, that's why they never use the word profitable. It's just like they say that it's sustainable for them to, like, keep doing it because it makes it attractive for them, and they have the money to keep sinking into that thing, to be in the red just to make it grow. And that's why, like, Sony's, like, very scared of, like, that day one availability of. I tell you, especially in this economy, Paul, an economy that's getting way harder by the minute. The most popular the game that always sells the most year in and year out becomes available in Game Pass day one. That's bad news for Sony. That's absolutely the bad.
Really bad news.
And that's why, like, they've been playing, like, very chicken on this, especially when we learned last year Vanguard and Black Ops Cold Wars were their two best-selling games of the entire period. So I mean, this is just one of those no-brainers. It's like, all right, Sony, you've been doing some really scummy stuff, but business-wise, probably a smart move to make that clause. Yeah, for them, especially.
Thank God for that whole process. I mean, I guess we'll see what happens at the end of that process. I mean, there's no way that they're going to allow themselves to get wrapped into it again. Unless Sony pays them more than what they could make putting it on Game Pass.
No, I doubt it. I don't think they have anything that could withstand or how can I say this? They could pay Activision anything more than what Microsoft's offering them, which is like paying way more than they were valued. Because remember, Activision's value completely plummeted after the lawsuit. So that's why I'm like, yeah, it's like if this deal doesn't, no, I feel like if this deal doesn't go through in a way, that I don't think Activision and Sony will have a good relationship afterwards, because then it'd be like, hey, you guys stonewalled us from getting $70 billion. Imagine that. Just because you were crying about like you potentially accident, even though Microsoft has said that it's not gonna take it away, they're just not gonna give you a perpetuity contract, because that's like smart business sense. You will want to renew contracts all the time, because why give something in perpetuity? But to me, I think it's just going to be more important that if this deal goes through, that the benefit to Xbox gamers won't be felt until like 2 years after. Because remember, this deal is closing in on by June 2023. That's when they're like earmarking when they think this deal will be done. And then by estimation, by 2025, that's when they'll get the day one Call of Duty and Game Pass. That's what's crazy. And Microsoft is still willing to honor it. That to me is what's even crazier, that they want Activision so bad because this opportunity was put in their laps, that they're willing to play ball. But yeah, it's like we still have to see the dirt being like thrown at each other for some reason. And
I can't wait to see it actually pop off. But until then, I don't know if I have anything left to think about it.
Yes. But I will say that it's very interesting seeing the way that that Microsoft is willing to like spend that much money on a publisher like that. But seeing what's happening to the company, it's also raises some eyebrows. Yeah. So story this is story number 5.
Yeah.
Microsoft has reportedly laid off around 1,000 employees, including Xbox staff. Microsoft Insider paywall reports that the layoffs have been taking place across Microsoft's entire workforce rather than focusing on a single department. According to the report, cuts have affected staff from the Xbox division as well as those from the Microsoft Strategic Missions and Technology Organization. It's also been revealed that Studio Alpha, which was created as a serious gaming initiative to make cloud-based wargaming simulations for military and commercial customers, is among the departments being closed down entirely. Greg Chapman, who was principal architect at Studio Alpha, tweeted that he and his entire team had been let go. Well, it's been an adventure, Chapman tweeted. Today, me and my entire team were laid off. 12 years here at Microsoft and 25 in game development. Details shortly once the shock wears off. Meanwhile, Casey Lemson, who joined Microsoft as a software test engineer in 1998 and was most recently a group product program manager, revealed on Twitter that she was one of the employees who had been let go from the company. She tweeted, "Well, who's got 2 thumbs and just got laid off from Microsoft this morning? 2022 has been quite a year." Microsoft's mission engineering team, which studies space technology, has also reportedly been affected, with employees being told in an email that the group would be deprioritizing work already underway, and that team leaders would be working with staff who are part of a prioritization change to wrap up existing work and determine next steps. In a statement to Insider, a Microsoft spokesperson said, "Like all companies, we evaluate our business priorities on a regular basis and make structural adjustments accordingly. We will continue to invest in our business and hire in key growth areas in the year ahead." Gross, because to me it's like it's sucky hearing how much they're willing to spend on Activision Blizzard,
and everybody else is
I tell you, I can believe that those $68.7 billion could totally be used to have kept all of this.
But even if it doesn't go through, they're not going to use it for that.
Exactly. That's what makes it like this to me, like it's clearer than ever that like the economy right now is in the shitter, in absolute shitter, that even a company as highly valued as Microsoft needs to like lay off 1,000 employees, even if it's not just Xbox people. Just thinking about it, because remember, where Xbox likes it or not, that's still part of Microsoft. That's it.
Just like you said, it's messy, and I can understand from one side of it, when you have the people looking at the numbers and all that, you don't attribute it to the people and the lives that you're affecting when you do that. But also I understand the process of businesses is to slowly, naturally build up bureaucracy, and then the smart ones hire the right people to cut all of the fat off that they create themselves every few years. And that's where this gets tricky, because it's like, well, yeah, certainly that's what happens. And that's part of the process to make a company survive. But then at the same time, especially when you're a company that big and you have that much money, I feel like you could also stand to have a little bit less of a margin and keep some of those people running, you know?
Yeah.
So it's you almost can't say that to any business person, because then they look at you like you're an idiot and then they never take you seriously. So the kind of people that make it into those positions are always going to be the ones willing to make the hard choice. And unfortunately, I think that's just one of the realities that we live in, especially when people throw out trigger words like bad economy and stuff. They can just use that to describe and basically justify anything.
Yeah. To me, it's just so weird seeing how much money I know that they have that they're willing to spend, and seeing this, it just doesn't compute for me. Like, there's no way it can ever compute to me. It's like, my thoughts are on all those 1,000 people being laid off, because one would have thought that they had like at least a safe place to work, because this is not a company strapped for cash.
You say I work for Microsoft, usually you're like, ooh, job security, and then this happens. So it's like, you just, all right, Microsoft, come on, guys.
Yeah, right? Priorities, right?
Seriously.
Final story, Paul. In light of wanting to end things on a little bit of more of a positive note. Final story: finishing God of War's North Saga in 2 games or a trilogy was debated a lot. Story by Tom Ivan.
All right.
Developers from Sony Santa Monica Studio have discussed the challenges involved in wrapping up God of War's North Saga in 2 games. Set for release on PS4 and PS5 next month, Ragnarok will complete this North story, which began with 2018 series reboot God of War. But it could easily have been the second entry in a 3-part story, rather than the concluding chapter. Developers responsible for God of War for Ragnarok's story said in the first in a new series of behind-the-scenes videos, which you can see at the PlayStation YouTube channel. Whether the North Saga was going to be a trilogy or just 2 games was something we debated a lot, said lead writer Rich Gobbery. There were obviously pros and cons for either approach, so we waited for Santa Monica creative director Cory Barlog to weigh in, and he did. And he said, let's do it in 2. The consequence to that is, how do you wrap up this story in 1 game and do Ragnarok justice, said senior producer Ariel Angelotti. How do we lead up to that and then have a big moment at the end of the game and wrap up all those loose ends? This game is bigger than what we initially envisioned. There's a lot of important story moments that we needed to cover. There are more characters that we follow the threads of, and ultimately it ends up feeling big and epic because there is a lot more for people to enjoy. Govery added, I am very excited for folks to see this final chapter. A lot happens. We put our characters through the ringer, but we also bring them closure, and we provide answers to a lot of the questions the first game posed. Last September, Barlog said Santa Monica chose to finish God of War's North story in 2 games because the development of each title was lengthy, and he didn't want players to have to wait 15 years to experience a trilogy. In a PlayStation blog post, Santa Monica lead community manager Grace Orlity said the new Ragnarok behind-the-scenes video series will be released in 9 parts, each diving into one aspect of the game, from shaping the story and elevating combat to creating the score and crafting cinematics. She wrote, the story of God of War Ragnarok is not only that of a father and son who must confront the coming tides of war, it is also the story of the individuals who chose to devote their time, skill, and passion to build this game together in the face of unprecedented uncertainty during a global pandemic. The studio recently announced that the game had gone gold, meaning it is feature complete and ready for physical production ahead of God of War Ragnarok release date on November 9. I'm glad that now we're getting the behind the scenes stuff, because this was part of the shaping the story video that is linked in the article here. That's 10 minutes, and they're gonna be giving it's cheeky 9 pieces, the 9 realms. So
I'm really appreciative of, I guess, just to touch on the behind the scenes process for this, because as we know, the Raising Kratos documentary being super famous across the internet for how in depth, despite it only going for 2 hours, I think, and some change,
and still trying to paint trying to paint the whole process of making that game in a positive light in a way.
Yeah.
Not fully showing the how can I say this, from what I've been hearing, the story was actually more arduous than that documentary even showed. That was still very very doctored. Yeah. Apparently, making that game was an even bigger ordeal. So
I guess it just depends on what you're trying to set out to do it. If you're trying to paint the like this is the entire story, trust us, versus hey, look, we know there's a lot of really rough sides to game development, but we wanted to give you an inspiring story in the end about what the result was. Then it's like, yeah, I went out and succeeded at that, and I guess it's up to other storytelling processes and interviews to tell the opposite side of it, obviously.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
But they're more open about like the development than I feel more other developers should, in a way.
Probably like, so, yeah.
It can endear you more to the studio. I think that Racing Kratos documentary, like more than anything, like gave a personal connection to Santa Monica as a studio that elevated why people like think of God of War as highly as they do. So.
I think it also primed me for actually enjoying the game my second playthrough, because there was, of course, the first time playing it, there was eventually watching the documentary, and then however many months or year after I watched that, playing the game with that knowledge in my head made it a much better experience because I had so much more context for everything that went into it. And I think that that's one of the things that we've kind of lost lately, that like genuine behind the scenes mystery and excitement that you used to get with like a DVD.
Yes.
It's like bonus features behind the scenes.
Remember the Star Wars DVDs?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. The Phantom Menace one specifically that had like hours and hours of behind the scenes details about every part of the process, and I got super into that, and I think it kept me interested in the concept and work behind movies for years to come. And I'm really glad that we're starting to get official documentaries for the development of games now, because I think that's going to create a lot of the same love for it. So I know this wasn't about behind the scenes stuff, but essentially
they're telling us that now, like they're sharing that story now, like with the BTS clips that they're releasing.
People are so obsessed with the concept of trilogies that I think people have forgotten that you can tell a story in less or more than 3 entries into a series and still get a very solid conclusion to whatever you're doing. And I think that's why a lot of people have panicked when they were like, there's only going to be 2 of these, how are you going to fit all of that? It's like, all right, there are other act structures out there. I might not enjoy them as much because I gotten really comfortable with my nice little 3-act structure, but you could still have 3-act structures within 2 entries to an
there's nothing wrong with a duology.
Yeah, I mean, especially in this day and age where it's very difficult to create a series out of something. Sometimes you only get those 2 shots at it. Sometimes you get lucky and you get to make more than 3. And then how do you keep things going from there? But it's like,
to me, it's like learning that the original God of War trilogy, the Greek one, was originally planned to just be 2 games. And then the third one...
I keep forgetting that.
And me learning that was like, especially replaying them recently, I can feel that because the story of that third game is basically the second story again, but worse.
Yeah.
So,
although the second one did end on a pretty big cliffhanger with the process of it.
A forced cliffhanger, because the end of that game, the end of that game as originally planned and envisioned was the Titan climb and a fight with Zeus at the top.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So then they basically had to create and stretch out the final act of the second game. I remember we had that whole conversation. I completely forgot about that.
Exactly. So I think that explains to me why they're okay with just doing a duology here, because if they feel like the story they're telling can be told with just this, more power to them. It's like I don't want that arbitrary, let's keep extending it, let's have middle child syndrome to kind of have like a third game that can be completed now.
Yeah.
So that's why I respect that. Now it depends on how long, because we've heard that this game's supposedly 20 hours main story, 20 hours side content. That's just from the report by Tom Henderson. Yeah, reading this, maybe it could be even longer. So
I could see that, especially if you really take your time with something, you really listen to the dialogue of things, you really sit with the environment.
And them saying that it's how can I say this? That you're following other characters also.
That, I think that's more along the lines of Kratos and Atreus stepping into the different people's lives, because as we saw, it was Brock and Sindri in the 2018 game. We had Freya.
Yeah, Freya.
And
Baldur.
Really, Balder, but he was more like the villain side of it. But like you walked alongside the lives of really only like 3 or 4 people, but expanding that to, I mean, we've already seen several more side characters that are going to be on our side, allied or whatever, at least temporarily with us. So I could see how they're meaning it through that. I don't know if they mean like, oh, there's going to be more characters you could play as, or like really follow, change things up. But I mean, obviously, there's heavily foreshadowed from the end of 2018's game and how you saw certain tapestries. Not spoiling that, but how things are going to really change by the end of this, and we might get one of those Arthur Morgan to John Marston style things, or John to Jack Marston.
Yeah.
Situation.
I can imagine. I can totally imagine that, especially with some things that were teased. If you were paying attention.
Yeah, that's certainly what I'm thinking. So yeah, I like there's any chance of stuff like that happening. We've already been confirmed several more side characters to follow along with, and I am all for it.
Yeah, so the thing, I'm glad. I can't wait to see more of this behind the scenes teases about nuggets of this development. I can't wait for them to show us what it was like developing this game from home in the midst of the pandemic, because remember this game was announced in the midst of that. So
I want to see documentaries about like that, the way things had to change so suddenly to keep projects going.
Oh yeah.
And I certainly appreciate all the games that managed to still come out in 2020 and 2021,
in 2022 and 2022 also.
Gosh, yeah, you're absolutely right, because of how long it takes to make these games now. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad for it. I can't wait, and that's probably my biggest. Well, what did I say? It was that was my 100% top.
Yeah, that's our number one for this year.
Ready for it.
Yeah, we still have the list there. So, and just kind of an addition, because that's in our list. We finally have Metacritics for 2 of the games that were released that came out this week. So, well, one is coming out tomorrow, one already released. So Plague Tale Requiem was out this week. That was my number 2, and that was your number 5 in your list. The Metacritic is an 83, so fairly positive. I actually,
for a double-A game.
Yeah, I thought it would be higher personally, but it's still great. So
I think the environment's a little different for people to be a little harder on it. I don't know if it's justified for that, because it looks so much like a AAA game that people are instinctively going to judge it harsher, I think. Whereas something like Kena Bridge of Spirits was like, this is a indie game, not big scope, and then everyone was like, oh, it's so wonderful and quaint.
I was like, is it raining?
Ghosts?
Yeah,
I'm hearing something in the background.
Yeah, I think it's raining. So,
okay,
yeah.
I thought it was the AC or something, but
no,
golly, it's really raining.
No, it's like pouring by, so you're able to hear it.
Holy smokes! All right.
And then tomorrow is Gotham Knights, which has a very nice score.
69.
Yes, on PS5. That was my number 10, and that was your number 7. I think I actually did right at putting it all the way to the bottom in that one.
I think Evil West is slowly creeping up, and Gotham Knights, RE Village, Midnight Suns just slowly getting bumped down a little.
By the way, as you're talking, I have the window of the Resident Evil showcase right now, looking at the remake of that thing. Holy crap! You have to look. They show gameplay. They're showing gameplay. So
crap, I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, you'll have to look it up. But yeah, real quick, so we can look it up after. Let's read about the game releases from October 23rd to October 29th. So, Garbage Pail Kids, Mad Mike, and the Quest for Stale Gum comes to PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC.
Wonderful title. I just
gotta get I don't even know what it is, but I love the title. God damn it, the rain's like pouring down.
That's loud, that's for sure.
So, Saturnalia comes to PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC on October 27. Signalis comes to PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC also on October 27. Star Ocean: The Divine Force comes to PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC on October 27. I think there's a demo for that also transfers over. I will have to check out.
I gave up on Star Ocean a long time ago, but I wish I loved it more because it looks so great.
Yeah. The widely discussed Bayonetta 3 comes to Switch on October 28th.
We didn't even talk about that.
I didn't want to get into that because it was like there were many layers. Just for people to know, there's a huge dispute about the original actress Alana Taylor that came forward saying that people should boycott the game because she wasn't paid. She wasn't being offered to be paid enough. So, and then more detail came out that apparently she was lowballing what they were offering her. There was like he said, she said stuff. So it was gonna be too much, and they didn't want to deal with that personally.
That's probably fair.
Then Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 comes to PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, Xbox One, PC on October 28. Asterisk, you can play the campaign today. And Resident Evil Re:Verse, that's the multiplayer game, comes out on October 28 on PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Resident Evil Village comes to Switch on October 28, and also the RE Village Winter's Expansion comes out on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, Xbox One, Stadia, and PC on October 28, December 2nd for Switch. So, and that's it for this week's episode, Paul.
There's a lot of good stuff coming out, that's for sure.
Yeah, and
then there's Garbage Pail Kids.
Yes. Modern Warfare 2 is like, to me, it's like, I already tried a multiplayer. I know that's... I'll try it in the full release because I saw that the file size is actually smaller than usual. So, because I cleared a bunch of space and installing the campaign was only 45 gigs.
You deleted like 5 games.
Yeah, it's because...
Get ready for this.
Yeah, it's because I was like, I might as well. We're in the season. I want to play from this season and then just clean some stuff back up when we're on holiday break. So, we'll see. And, man, it's like we have all these new games. I keep forgetting that now we're in the season. Just thinking about it.
We're in the middle of it. We're literally getting 2 games. One of which sort of today, one of which tomorrow, one of them like half a week ago.
Yeah. Sometime we're going to finish the streams of Stranger of Paradise. Sometime.
Actually, we're going to get back around to that sucker, that's for sure.
I bet by mid-November we probably will. Because...
do you really think so? Mid-November in the middle of God of War?
I think I would be done by then. Because I'm going to devour that sucker.
I don't... I've had to learn to not be rushing myself through that stuff. I don't know. Maybe I'll be done with God of War. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Also, so... Well, enough of that, Paul. This was this week's episode. Where can people find you?
As always, y'all can find me at Dork of Art on Twitter. I always post me breaking video games of various quality levels and also posting random art. Whether it's part that I've been professionally paid for or sometimes just fun little sketches for the fun of it. But yeah, where can they find you?
They can find me at A_Dorsegovia on Twitter. They can find me at Alejandro Segovia 93 on Instagram. Our Twitch streams at twitch.tv/theslayergiant, and my written content whenever there's one at thecriticalcorner.com.
You're still working on it.
Yeah. I think I've given up on the Naughty Dog thing. It was too long. I was like, I missed out on my window there.
Get like a nice little summary of all of that. Just.
I think I should have. I think I should have done the video first, and then the art, kind of like I did God of War, because I wrote it after we ranked it in the show. So.
True that. We still have that Assassin's Creed one in the wings if we ever wanted to pull that out.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. And now that I have finished it, now I kind of know where I would rank Valhalla. So.
True, and I'd have to revisit some of those because it's been so long, and I would be much harsher than I should. I'm worried about you just crucifying me for putting Assassin's Creed Unity like halfway up the trip or something like that.
The thing is that I wouldn't mind it because if we're judging it on its current state, it's a good game. That's the thing. Like Unity stands on the unlike the gaming sphere has improved now that the game's like working as intended, and then with the entries that came after it, people are like, you know what, maybe we were too harsh in that. Because the harshness...
I appreciate that, because Unity just got such a bad rap.
But that's the thing, it got a deserved bad rap for how bad it was at launch. That's
anyway,
the thing,
that's a story for another.
Exactly. Whenever we do that in an evergreen episode or randomly. So, enough of that, Paul. I can't wait to go play some games and have to make sure that water's not infiltrating because it's coming down.
Yeah, it sounds like you might be in a washing machine, honestly.
Right?
You might need to check that out.
Yeah, it's always nice. We'll play Gotham Knights, Paul, because we definitely, if there's some co-op there, that would be fun.
I guarantee that.
That could be the next stream, so we're gonna...
Hey.
Yeah, it's not a promise, people. Thank you so much for listening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and remember...
Press X.
To play.
Good night, everybody.
Hasta la vista, baby.